The mood at Ravens training camp shifted in an instant on Tuesday, going from the usual high-energy competition to a wave of concern that swept across the field. It all happened near the end of practice during a set of onion-on drills when Isaiah, likely one of the team's most exciting young offensive weapons, went down with what appeared to be a lower leg injury. He was visibly in pain pounding the turf and eventually had to be carted off the field. Never the kind of image anyone wants to see, especially not this early in camp. And just like that, what had been a productive day filled with flashes of brilliance from Lamar Jackson and a handful of emerging players was suddenly overshadowed. The entire team seemed to feel it, because Isaiah Likely isn't just another name on the depth chart. He's a guy expected to play a big role this season, someone who was set to take that next step in his career. And depending on the severity of this injury, everything could change. John Harbaugh addressed the media afterward and gave an initial update that was cautiously optimistic but left plenty of room for concern. He said it looks like Likely rolled his ankle, maybe closer to the foot, and confirmed that an MRI would be done the next day. According to Harbaugh, Likely is expected to miss a few weeks, but the team is hoping it's nothing more than a bad sprain. It's good that it's this early in camp, Harbaugh noted. And that's true. If you're going to suffer this kind of injury, better now than late August or worse during the regular season. Still, this isn't one of those injuries you can just brush off. Or even if it's a standard ankle sprain, the range of recovery timelines is wide. A mild sprain, something classified as grade 1, could mean just a week or two. But if this turns out to be a more moderate grade 2 sprain, now you're looking at 3 to 6 weeks. And if somehow it's more serious, a grade 3 with torn ligaments or structural damage, that's a totally different conversation. That's months, possibly surgery, and likely missing significant time in the regular season. There's also the human element of this moment. Likely was in pain, not just discomfort, but pounding the ground, eyes closed pain. That's not the kind of reaction you see from a minor tweak. Now, sure, everyone handles pain differently, and adrenaline can play a role, but it didn't look like something he'd be walking off by the next day. That's what makes this a little more unsettling for Ravens fans. And just to add another layer of drama to the situation, all of this happened right in the middle of a swirl of rumors about Isaiah Likely's contract. There were real whispers floating around Baltimore over the last few days that Likely and the team were getting close on an extension. Nothing confirmed by the big national names, but enough noise to make people believe something might be going on behind the scenes. Then right after the injury, one of the most plugged-in voices in NFL media, Ian Rappaport, appeared on national television and completely shut down those rumors. According to Rappaport, a deal is not close, not imminent, and the two sides are actually far apart. He did say that communication is ongoing, which is a good sign, but he made it clear this wasn't about to be wrapped up anytime soon. That conflicting information, one side saying something's brewing, another saying it's not even close, only adds to the confusion. But now all of that is secondary. Before we even get back to talking about contract numbers or possible extensions, the primary focus becomes Likely's health. How bad is it? How long will he be out? Will he be ready by week 1? The timeline here becomes crucial. Today is July 30th, so if Likely's injury is on the milder side and he's back in 3 weeks, that gives him just enough time to potentially rejoin the team ahead of the season opener. But if we're talking 4, 5, even 6 weeks or more, than now you're entering territory where he could miss a game or two to start the year. And that matters because Isaiah Likely isn't just depth. He's a legitimate weapon in Todd Monken's offense. He's the guy who can line up in the slot stretch the field vertically and create mismatches against linebackers and safeties. And if you've been following his trajectory, it's clear he was poised to take a leap this season. With a year of experience under his belt, with more chemistry built with Lamar Jackson, and with defenses likely to focus most of their attention on guys like Mark Andrews, Zay Flowers, and DeAndre Hopkins, Likely was in position to feast on those secondary matchups. So the Ravens can't afford to rush this. Even if Likely feels ready after a couple of weeks, even if the MRI comes back showing no major damage, this has to be handled with caution. We've seen players try to come back too soon from ankle injuries and end up dealing with it all season long. You can tape it, you can brace it, you can shoot it up, but if it's not right, especially for a player who relies so much on quick cuts and route running precision, then it becomes a lingering issue. Last season, Travis Jones suffered an ankle injury during training camp and never quite looked like himself even after returning. That kind of lingering setback is exactly what Baltimore needs to avoid with Likely. Because again, this is a contract year. Whether or not an extension is close, this is the season that could define Isaiah Likely's value moving forward. And don't forget Jake Ferguson from the Cowboys just signed a new deal worth around $13 million per year. That sets a new benchmark, and Isaiah Likely, based on production potential and age, is expected to be in that same ballpark or even higher. So now the question becomes, how does this injury impact those negotiations? Will the Ravens use it as leverage? Will Likely push harder to secure something before he returns to the field? Or does everything go on pause until the regular season? The reality is injuries like this tend to complicate everything. They affect playing time, they affect momentum, and yes, they affect money. And for a guy who's already made a name for himself as one of the league's better young tight ends, this is a tough break. The good news, it's not an ACL. It's not an Achilles. It's not a fracture, at least not from what we've heard so far. But until that MRI comes back, everything is speculation. And this is the part of camp that coaches dread. Every team goes through it. You're pushing guys to compete, to get in shape, to gel as a unit. And then one wrong step, one awkward landing, and suddenly you're staring down a medical chart instead of a depth chart. That's why John Harbaugh emphasized the silver lining here, that this happened early. The Ravens still have several weeks before real football starts. And in the meantime, they've got other tight ends like Mark Andrews and Charlie Kolar who can step up in Likely's absence. But make no mistake, there's a drop-off. Likely brings something different. He's not just a backup. He's part of the offensive identity. So now we wait. We hold our breath hoping the news is as positive as possible. And in the meantime, the Ravens have to adjust. They've been fortunate so far in camp, with injuries avoiding any major setbacks. But this one matters. Whether it's 2 weeks or 2 months, the ripple effects are real, both on the field and at the negotiating table. Coming up, we'll break down how Lamar Jackson has been looking in camp so far and why the offense is starting to find its rhythm, even with the Likely injury looming over the practice field. While the Isaiah Likely injury cast a shadow over Tuesday's practice, the rest of the session at Ravens training camp offered plenty of reasons for optimism. And at the center of that was Lamar Jackson. If the Ravens were looking for a reminder of what their franchise quarterback is capable of, they got it. Jackson turned heads with a signature play during full-team drills that felt like vintage Lamar, the kind of sequence that leaves defenders shaking their heads and fans cheering before the ball even hits the end zone. It started with what looked like a standard broken play. The pocket began to collapse, pressure was coming off the edges, and it looked like the play was doomed from the jump. But in typical Lamar fashion, he kept his eyes downfield, slipped out of the pocket, and took off toward the sideline. Multiple defenders had angles on him, but it didn't matter. Jackson hit the gas, turned the corner, and sprinted the final 50 yards, flipping into the end zone to celebrate with teammates. It was electric. And even though nobody's tackling the quarterback in training camp, it was a perfect reminder of what separates Lamar Jackson from every other quarterback in the league. But what stood out even more than the run was what came after. Jaire Alexander, one of the Ravens' newest defensive leaders, ran across the field to celebrate with the offense. Let that sink in. A cornerback in the middle of a hyper-competitive training camp session crossed the sideline to celebrate a touchdown by the offense. That doesn't happen unless the chemistry is real, unless the vibe inside the building is strong. And make no mistake, the vibes in Owings Mills right now are through the roof. Even John Harbaugh was smiling afterward, noting that sure, the defense probably felt the play should have been whistled dead, but you always have to run the ball every play, especially if Lamar Jackson has the ball. And it's true. You don't blow plays dead with number 8 under center, because even when it looks like the play is over, it's never really over with Lamar. And it wasn't just his legs doing the talking. Reports from camp suggest Jackson looked more consistent as a passer on Tuesday than he had in previous sessions. And while every quarterback has up and down days in camp, especially in early padded practices, Tuesday felt like the first day everything clicked. Timing, velocity, footwork, decision-making. It was all there, and that's exactly what Ravens fans wanted to hear after a few reports earlier in the week suggesting Jackson was still shaking off some rust. His chemistry with the receiving core is still developing, but one name in particular is quickly becoming impossible to ignore: Tez Walker. The rookie wideout had arguably the best day of anyone on the offensive side of the ball. He was the go-to target not only for Lamar Jackson, but for other quarterbacks during the second half of practice. Whether it was contested catches, slide and grabs, or high-pointing balls in the back of the end zone, Walker was everywhere. He had a beautiful slide and catch on a crossing route with Malachi Starks closing in at full speed. A few plays later, he skied above Nate Wiggins, no slouch himself, and hauled in a back shoulder throw in the end zone from Cooper Rush. The Ravens media team posted some of those highlights online, and it's hard not to get excited about what Walker could become. And the buzz around him isn't just fan-driven hype. Internally, the Ravens have been raving about Tez since OTAs. What's becoming clear now is that he's not just competing for a roster spot. He's legitimately in the mix for the WR3 role. In fact, at the rate he's going, it wouldn't be shocking if he overtook DeAndre Hopkins in the pecking order before the season's halfway point. Now, that might sound bold, but there's precedent in Baltimore for training camp stars to break through, and plenty of cases where they never quite made the leap. Names like James Proche, Jordan Lasley, and Miles Boykin come to mind. But with Tez, it feels different. There's already a level of polish to his game. His route running is sharp, his hands are strong, and perhaps most importantly, he looks confident. And if that's the case, if Tez Walker truly becomes the third weapon behind Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews, that could dramatically alter the dynamics of this offense. Because let's be honest, for years, Baltimore's passing game has been begging for consistency beyond the top two targets. If Tez can bring that now, you've got something. As for DeAndre Hopkins, he's still making his share of highlight plays. He almost had back-to-back days with one-handed grabs over Nate Wiggins, but the second attempt was just out of bounds, and while it didn't count, it still showed that his body control and ball skills haven't diminished. Even if he's not the player he was 5 years ago, he's going to be a valuable presence, especially when it comes to mentoring younger receivers and taking some pressure off Zay and Tez. On the defensive side of the ball, there were also plenty of standouts. Malachi Starks made a terrific pass breakup against Mark Andrews. No easy task against one of the best tight ends in the league. That's the kind of play that jumps off the tape when coaches evaluate camp performances. Starks isn't just playing with speed and range, he's showing the awareness and timing it takes to go toe-to-toe with elite offensive players, and he wasn't alone. Sanusi Kane and Bo Brad both delivered physical tone-setting hits on the sideline, a reminder that the battle for that third safety spot is alive and well. The Ravens haven't brought in a veteran yet to replace Ardarius Washington, which suggests they like what they've seen so far from these young guys. Jair Alexander was back in action after missing Monday's session, and he made his presence felt immediately with a textbook pass breakup on Tez Walker near the sideline. That's what you want from your number one corner. No easing back in just full-speed competition from snap one. And then there's the kicker battle. John Land went 5 for 6 on the day, missing only from 51 yards. Tyler Loop did a kick during Tuesday's session, but that's just part of the rotation. The competition is expected to continue throughout the preseason. In the trenches, Honest Peoples continues to show why he's one of the most intriguing rookies on this roster. The defensive lineman had a gorgeous spin move sack during pass rush drills that turned heads. And it wasn't the first time he's done it either. Day after day, Peoples keeps stacking good practices. And at this point, it feels like he's making a serious case not just to make the team, but to earn rotational snaps right away. David Ojabo also showed up in a big way, using a pure speed rush to get around the edge and into the backfield. For a player who's dealt with so many injury setbacks, every rep matters. And Ojabo has been slowly but steadily trending upward throughout camp. Another defensive highlight came from rookie cornerback Q Blue Kelly, who made 3 separate plays during the red zone period. He had a pick off a tipped pass, brought pressure off the edge on a blitz, and made a key tackle for loss in the flat. Performances like that are exactly how young defenders carve out roles in a crowded secondary. And throughout all of this, through the likely injury, through the growing pains of early camp installs, through the heated unknowns and red zone battles, the vibes remain immaculate. There's something about this team, a mix of confidence and hunger. Guys are flying around celebrating with one another, coaching each other up on the sideline, and showing genuine energy between plays. And even the coaching staff seems locked in. Chuck Smith, the pass rush specialist brought in to elevate Baltimore's pressure packages, has been one of the more fascinating voices at camp. His breakdowns of technique, footwork, and mentality are drawing rave reviews from players. He's been especially complimentary of Mike Green and HARBAUGH, two edge rushers who are expected to play big roles this season. According to Chuck, Mike Green is already earning his stripes. He praised his effort, motor, and coachability. As a rookie, Green knows he's got to earn every rep. And so far, he's doing just that. And with OA, Chuck Smith has emphasized the growth in his pass rush arsenal. He's got moves now, Chuck said. Multiple moves. Not just one. That's critical. OA came into the league as a raw, explosive athlete. The goal was always to turn that potential into production. Now, with a few seasons under his belt and a more refined set of tools, he's finally looking like the complete pass rusher the Ravens hoped he'd become. Chuck also had major praise for Annis Peoples, calling him lightning quick despite his smaller frame. He said Peoples has one of the best grasp of interior rush techniques in this rookie class and could end up being the steal of the draft. And if you've watched the way Peoples has performed in practice, it's hard to argue. Mike Green spoke with the media as well and made it clear that he's ready to contribute in any way the team needs, whether that's on defense, special teams, or just giving the offense good looks in practice. That kind of self-awareness and team-first mentality is exactly what coaches love to see in a young player. And when asked which veteran he's been learning from most, Green didn't name Kyle Van Noy, even though the Super Bowl champ is the obvious answer. He said Tavius Robinson. According to Green, it's Robinson's work ethic, attention to detail, and daily approach that has made him such a valuable mentor. And honestly, that says a lot about both players. Tavius Robinson is another one of those names that keeps coming up in camp, and for good reason. Coaches, teammates, and analysts alike are projecting a breakout year for him. He's strong against the run, his pass rush technique is improving, and he plays with a chip on his shoulder. With Baltimore's deep defensive line rotation, it's hard to stand out, but Robinson is doing just that. HARBAUGH also met with reporters and talked about how he's been adding more weight, nearly 15 pounds this offseason, to help with his strength at the point of attack. He also emphasized the importance of developing a variety of moves and tailoring them to the specific tackles he'll face each week. That's the kind of detailed approach you want from a player entering a critical year in his development. OA also couldn't stop raving about J.R. Alexander. He called him a dog and said that he brings a certain level of craziness to practice, in the best way. Whether it's trash talk, intensity, or just energy, Alexander is clearly becoming a tone setter for this team. So while the day started with a scare and the injury to Isaiah Likely is still looming large Tuesday, ultimately served as a showcase for the growing identity of this team. A defense that's flying around and forcing turnovers, an offense that's starting to click into rhythm, and a locker room that's tighter than ever. It's only the first week of padded practices, but something is brewing in Baltimore. And if Lamar Jackson continues to elevate, if Tez Walker keeps ascending, and if this defense stays fast and physical, then this Ravens team might be closer to its ceiling than anyone thought. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support keeps us bringing you the latest news on the Baltimore Ravens. And hey, drop your take in the comments below. We want to hear from the flock. In what's shaping up to be one of the most intriguing storylines of the NFL offseason, Baltimore Ravens head coach John Harbaugh has reportedly delivered a sharp, unfiltered comment that has ignited a firestorm of speculation within league circles. He doesn't play for me anymore. The target of that statement, according to insiders, is a key Ravens player, one whose relationship with the team may have fractured beyond repair. Though Harbaugh has yet to officially confirm the player in question, the statement alone has been enough to send shockwaves through the Ravens fan base and NFL front offices alike. The offhand comment, reportedly made behind closed doors but leaked to media sources late Monday night, has led many to believe a significant roster shakeup could be on the horizon in Baltimore. The identity of the player remains officially undisclosed. But league sources suggest the rift involves a high-profile member of the Ravens roster, possibly a starter, and possibly someone who has had disagreements with the coaching staff before. The cryptic nature of Harbaugh's comment has only fueled the flames, and speculation is running wild. Was it a moment of frustration, a slip of the tongue, or something far more calculated? Those close to the team hint that tensions have been simmering for months, dating back to a series of sideline exchanges during the latter part of last season. One source described the coach-player relationship as unsalvageable, while another added, "It's been brewing since week 13, something snapped. It's personal now." The Ravens, known for their buttoned-up public image and team-first culture, rarely air internal disputes. Harbaugh, in particular, has a long-standing reputation for loyalty to his players and for keeping any locker room drama in-house. So when even a whisper of discord escapes the walls of the Under Armour Performance Center, it tends to raise eyebrows. That's why this apparent fallout has the NFL world buzzing. Was Harbaugh signaling an impending trade? A cut? A disciplinary move? And more importantly, who is the player? Several names have been floated, though all remain unconfirmed. Among the rumored possibilities are a veteran wide receiver who reportedly clashed with coaches over his role, a defensive leader whose effort has been questioned behind the scenes, and even a young offensive weapon who may have struggled with accountability and team culture. If the speculation proves true, it wouldn't be the first time a high-profile coach-player relationship has dissolved in public view. But what makes this scenario especially curious is Harbaugh's language: blunt, definitive, and arguably final. He doesn't play for me anymore. That sounds less like frustration and more like a door closing. Still, it's possible the comment was misinterpreted or taken out of context. Some within the Ravens or organization have reportedly downplayed the incident, suggesting Harbaugh was simply venting in a moment of private exasperation. Others believe it was intentionally leaked to send a message, either to the player, the locker room, or perhaps the front office. What's undeniable is the timing. With training camp heating up and rosters starting to solidify, any sign of unrest in a contending team like the Ravens becomes magnified. The team has Super Bowl aspirations, and distractions, especially ones involving star players, can derail momentum fast. Ravens GM Eric DeCosta has remained silent on the matter, as has the team's official PR channel. When asked about this report during a brief media scrum Tuesday morning, Harbaugh offered a non-answer, saying only, "We're focused on the guys who are here. That's what matters." A classic deflection or further confirmation that something serious is happening. Behind the scenes? In the ever-churning world of NFL rumors, the line between fact and fiction can blur quickly. But this particular situation feels different. The language is too strong, the timing too suspicious, and the silence from the player in question, whoever it may be, too deafening. One league executive summed it up succinctly: "That's not something Harbaugh says unless he's made up his mind." Of course, until an official move is made, be it a release, a trade, or a suspension, everything remains speculative. But the mood around the team has shifted. What was once a confident, cohesive unit heading into 2025 training camp now feels suddenly uncertain, overshadowed by a quiet but growing controversy. As whispers turn into headlines and rumors continue to swirl, one thing is clear: something is going on in Baltimore. And if Harbaugh truly meant what he said, the Ravens could be facing a major change, sooner rather than later. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay in the loop with exclusive news on our Baltimore Ravens, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what the flock thinks. Drop your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next one.